Who are you? And where are you going? What do you want?
Hello and welcome to Jiggers' Place on the Way to Wow shows. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we're here for this particular show every other Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and we talk about all those things that make life worth living aside from business and professional and financial matters. And so today we're going to, the title of the show is Come On, Get Happy. We're going to be talking about this topic of happiness. It's something that I've looked at a lot in my life. But before we do that, we're going to have our cocktail. I have my trusty recipe here. This is a roots and wing cocktail designed by ChatGPT. And for those of you who are not on my email list, the cocktail represents the balance of staying grounded and reaching for new heights. It combines whiskey's depth with herbal and botanical notes alongside a hint of spice for warmth. Does that sound good? So these are the ingredients we're using. In this case, whiskey, I'm using a rye, which is a whiskey where the grain is rye. In this case, I'm using Mitcher's single barrel. Mitcher's has been making rye in the United States since 1753. So since before we were a country, and this is a Kentucky straight rye. And then we're going to use some Amaro. So in this case, I'm using Argelinic. This is an Amaro from the Czech Republic, and it's been made since 1894. So you can see I have this thing for old stuff. And then we're going to just be using a little bit of ginger liqueur. You can also use just ginger juice. You can use some muddled fresh ginger. I've had this Barrow's Intense Ginger Liqueur for quite a while, and I thought it'd be fun to try it out in this cocktail. And then just some lemon juice. Fresh squeezed is always best. I didn't have time to get to the store, so I'm using a little bit of just lemon juice, and then just a little bit of simple syrup. So those are our ingredients. And we're going to start out with 2 ounces of whiskey, of rye whiskey. This is the Mitcher's. And let's make sure I find my, it's this whole thing. Okay. Okay. So 2 ounces of whiskey. And then I think it's a half ounce of Amaro. Amaro is a bitter liqueur, and let's flip over to this side. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and typically a lot of Amaro are from Italy. I think last time I used Amaro, it was an Italian Amaro that I used. I thought, try something different. And then let's see, a half ounce of the ginger liqueur. Give it a little spice. Ginger has some kick to it. I don't know if you're like me. I love sushi and I love the fresh ginger that usually goes with the sushi. Okay, and then 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. Let's see. Yep, there it is. Use the lemon juice up, I think. That's good. Okay, and then to offset the lemon juice will be a half ounce of simple syrup. Simple syrup is really just syrup, sugar boiled down in water. And let's see, there we go. Okay. I don't remember what brand. This is just something I found one time. Oh, Master of Mixers, simple syrup. I've made my own in the past. I've used stirrings. All of them are good. Okay, so then we're gonna put some ice in the shaker. Sometimes I pour in the ingredients over ice. In this case, we're putting in the ingredients first and then putting in the ice. A little bit more. Oops. No, that's okay. It's just water. That's the thing about ice. Okay, so there's our ice, and here it is. Okay, here's the top of our shaker. Okay, and for those of you who've watched before, you know that we want to shake it down good. It's not just to mix it, but it's to ice it down. Let some of the water come in. Let some of the ice dilute so that it opens up the flavors. And you can see the shaker is getting nice and frosty on the outside. Just a few seconds more. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to use a rocks glass for this. This is from, it's got a Juniper Square logo on it. Juniper Square is a company that provides support for organizations that do investing. One of their people, when she was in Los Angeles, took me out to lunch to talk about it. We had a lovely lunch. Okay, and here we go. So, look at this color. It's golden. Wow, that just looks fantastic. Okay, and here we go. Give it a try. Wow, another home run. All right, I'll meet you on the other side. So here we are over on the sofa, or the love seat actually. I've got my cocktail that's so delicious. I have my coaster. I think I got this at Kitson, if I remember, and it says Happy Hour Records, Side A, I want to dance with some brandy. There you go. Right? We got to have our jokes. So our topic for today, as I mentioned at the opening, is happiness. Like I said, it's been a challenge of mine pretty much my whole life. So I have a friend, and over the last 6, 7, 8, 9 months, we've actually become much better friends. His name is Michael. I have a lot of Michaels in my life. And I remember when I first met him, he was always a very upbeat person. And I really admired that. And we were coming out of a synagogue, Beth Jacob of Beverly Hills, on one afternoon. And I stopped him and I said, did you become this upbeat way as a result of living a more traditional Jewish life? Because at the time I was just becoming more traditionally religious. And I thought, that would be a great benefit of living a more traditional life. And he laughed and he said, no. He said, I've always been this way. It's something I got from my mother. So I thought that was interesting. From his perspective, it was kind of, I don't want to say he was born with it, but he was raised to it. I was not. But that's just sort of one step on my road to finding happiness. So as a prior to that, as a young guy living here in Los Angeles, I went to college here. I went to USC starting in 1978, graduated from USC in basically 82 and stayed on here in LA. So LA, especially at that time, had a lot to offer a young guy. So I was in the real estate business. One of what especially at the time, were I think the two most prominent industries in Los Angeles
real estate and the other being the entertainment industry. And I got involved. I always loved movies, and it was a fun city to live in. I had friends from Santa Barbara where I grew up. They'd come down here. We'd go to film festivals, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things I noticed was I was incredibly lonely, even when I had a girlfriend. I was still lonely, and I think what I tried to do at that time was assuage the loneliness and the pain of loneliness by distracting myself, by seeking comfort, basically, by trying to make sure I wasn't experiencing pain, whether it was the pain of loneliness or whatever it was. And I tried that for years and years and years, and could never sustain happiness in any real way. And so that's when I started looking at what is happiness? What does it really mean? And one of the people that I listened to was a very well-known lecturer at the time. He was like a coach, sort of, Zig Ziglar. And he observed that it's really easy to be happy. All you have to do is start laughing. Even if you're not feeling laughing, you can start going, and you're gonna feel better, right? The action of laughing causes us to feel better. But that's not really what I think most people consider to be happiness. Happiness is a sense of contentment, and a sense that I have a place in the world, and all these kind of things. So drinking heavily, chasing members of the opposite sex, drugs, all these things, they numb us so we don't feel unhappy, but they may make us feel comfortable in being very wealthy and being able to buy all kinds of things. We can buy a tremendous lot of comfort, but comfort and happiness are not the same thing. And so then I started looking at life differently as I headed into my, especially as I moved out of my mid 30s and into my late 30s and 40s. And I realized that happiness, as at least as I was seeking it, was something more than not being uncomfortable. And in my particular case, I had always felt very connected to being Jewish, but I was not particularly involved with Jewish practice. And so after my first wife and I got divorced, I met a fellow by the name of Greg Yaris, and he started inviting me to his home. He and his wife celebrated a traditional Shabbat, a Friday night dinner or a Saturday lunch. And I started opening myself up to opportunities to grow and to start seriously looking at setting goals for my life, not just financial goals. So prior to that, I always looked at goal setting as, I'm going to earn X number of dollars a year. I'm going to have X number of dollars in accumulated wealth. Have another sip of my cocktail. And it was very frustrating because I was in the real estate business, and sometimes the real estate business just does not cooperate. So if the economy is not with you, it's very hard to beat the economic conditions that create a poor real estate market. And And so I realized I needed to have goals in all areas of my life. And I needed to actually look for opportunities to grow. Essentially, that's what a goal is. A goal is saying, my life is here right now. I want my life to be here. I'm going to have to make some changes along the way to get from point A to point B. And change, almost by definition, means growing. And growth means, by definition, not being comfortable. Now, I won't go so far as to say it's always painful, although sometimes, maybe oftentimes it is, but it is definitely uncomfortable. We don't grow staying in our zone where everything is okay, hey, no problem, all that kind of stuff. And what I realized was, as I started achieving other types of goals, my self-respect grew. And as my self-respect grew, I was happier. That's the best way to put it. Not happier in the sense of going to a comedy show and laughing at a lot of great jokes, but happier in the sense of being content within my own skin. Having a sense that I had some agency over my life. So let's be honest. There are a lot of things that happen in life that we have no control over. So as I'm talking to you right now, the 2024 presidential election was just held, or at least election day was 2 days ago, and President Trump won the election, and Kamala Harris did not win. And it was a relatively close election. I think President Trump won 51+% of the popular vote, although he won a much larger percentage of the electoral college vote. And I've been listening to various podcasts, sort of doing postmortems about the election. And there's a lot of people who are very sad that their candidate didn't win. And there are a lot of people who are very happy that their candidate did win. Some of them are even gloating, which I think is not such a great thing, frankly. But here's the thing. When all is said and done, we had nothing to do, most of us, not everybody, of course. Most of us had almost nothing to do with who won or lost, except for voting. This is something that we do as fellow citizens, but we have very little agency over the result, little, if any, agency over the result. So on a certain level, to be happy or sad about the outcome, while it's natural, hopefully it's not going to be something that impacts us for very long, because 2 years from now, there's going to be another election, and things could change. 2 years before, in 2022, there was a big election. There was supposed to be a quote unquote red wave, and it didn't happen. And it shouldn't have been a cause for people who wanted to see the red wave to happen, because most of us had very little ability to affect it one way or the other. So what setting goals does for us is it gives us an opportunity to strive for something that we actually have the ability to impact. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I've always wanted to be a musician and a singer. Now, to be a singer as good as Dean Martin or somebody like that, I don't have the voice, but it would be beyond a dream come true. I don't have any aspirations or goals to get to that level. But I did set a goal to learn to play the ukulele and to be able to sing along and perform. And I achieved that goal for the most part. Now, I'm not an expert ukulele player. I still have to, I have to get back into it and continue practicing and building my skills. But that I was able to learn to play the ukulele pretty well, and with my little amplifier and my pickup on my ukulele and my song sheets, and be able to sing and do a little performance, even if it was only for me or me and my family, that gave me a great deal of happiness. And that was clearly something that was within my ability to achieve. It stretched me because it required a lot of self-discipline to do the everyday practice it takes to become, to be able to play a musical instrument. And it was physically painful sometimes because I would get calluses on or not calluses, but I would, my finger would be rubbed red, and my nail would be, would hurt from the strumming, and the pads of my fingers, until I developed calluses, would hurt from fingering the chords. So there was physical pain, and there was kind of the emotional pain of oh, I've got to practice again. And it wasn't exactly happiness, although once I would start practicing, I would feel happy because I had exercised self-discipline toward being able to do something that I very much wanted to do. So it was a growth experience for me. And I remember I learned to play the ukulele while I was on active duty in the Navy. I was sent to Germany as a geo bachelor, and eventually I came home, and I would do little concerts for my then wife and daughter, and I'm pretty sure they both thought this was super cheesy on my part, but being able to sing songs to my wife, especially certain love songs. One of my favorites was Jet Plane, the John Denver song, leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again, gonna bring you a ring, all that kind of stuff. For me, that was kind of very romantic and all of that. I guess in retrospect it wasn't for her, I don't know. but this experience of being able to endure build the emotional resilience of the self-discipline that was necessary to achieve this was really a terrific thing. And it's still, when I look at my ukuleles in their little holders, and I have my amp there and whatever, my music stand with my microphone, I see that, and I feel a certain self-confidence and happiness that I was able to achieve enough of becoming a musician that could justify my spending whatever it was, $300-400 on this various equipment. And so I think we tend to look at it and say, well, if I can be comfortable, I'll be happy. If I can avoid pain, I'll be happy. But the reality of life is of seeking comfort and avoiding pain, I think leads much more likely to unhappiness than it does to happiness. And conversely, purposely putting ourselves in a situation where we are going to experience some challenges, maybe even some pain, as we strive to grow, whether it's grow emotionally, whether it's grow in some kind of physical way, like building calluses on our fingertips, learning to play the ukulele, whether it's growing spiritually by committing to a spiritual discipline, like being more more traditionally religious and being more involved in ritual and such, I think it creates a sort of inner happiness that we actually have the ability to guide our lives and not be subject to the sort of whims of life and the vicissitudes of existence. That to me is a sense of happiness and satisfaction that is much more deeply enriching than merely trying to avoid pain and seeking comfort. So another sip here. Well, I have to say, the mix of all of these, so rye is a spicy grain and has lots of layered flavors, where as compared to something, for example, like bourbon, which is corn, at least 50% corn. And as you probably are aware, corn is a sweetener. So bourbon has a sweetness to it. That's the overwhelming taste of bourbon, although obviously there are other things. Rye does not have that same quality. Rye is a spice palette, and then mix that with a tinge of bitterness and a tinge of sour and a tinge of intense spice of the ginger and just a little bit of sweetness of the simple syrup makes just a wonderful cocktail. But I digress. But after all, it is Jiggers' place, where we talk about books, cocktails, life, all these kind of things. So I encourage you to seek opportunities for growth. Maybe it's taking a class, some sort of academic or intellectual growth. Maybe it's getting involved in some sort of physical activity that challenges you physically, learning to spelunk, rock climb. Maybe it's adopting a pet and having another living creature to take care of. Or even better, maybe it's really going out there and saying, I want to spend my life with another person. So I was talking to a friend of mine, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, and he was talking about a verse from the Hebrew Bible, and he quoted me the Hebrew, but the Hebrew basically, it was talking about the story of Adam and Eve. The Hebrew was saying, essentially, Eve was a challenge to Adam. That's a fairly accurate translation of the Hebrew. It's like, wow, why would Adam ever want to be involved with a woman who was a challenge to him? But that's the archetype. The person that we marry, and I would argue that marriage is the most challenging relationship into which we can enter, because it is supposed to be lifelong. Easy for a guy like me to say, whose second marriage has unwound. But to live with someone who's a different sex than we are, and we don't have a visceral understanding of how this person thinks, how this person feels, etc. So this is a continual opportunity for growth, and it's going to cause us pain. It's going to cause us sleepless nights. It's going to cause us annoyance and anger. But I think those of you who are married, I think you would agree with me, when you sit down very calmly and look at your life, to have a successful marriage is a source of tremendous pride. Not pride in the sense of how great am I, but self-satisfaction, maybe pride in the sense of self-satisfaction. There is no to sustain a marriage is far more difficult than any other situation in which we can put ourselves, especially because marriage is voluntary. And so I encourage you, I implore you, I urge you to find situations in your life that will challenge you, that will give you the opportunity to grow and really find true happiness, the kind that gets into our kishkas, as we say in Yiddish, that gets into our gut, that gets into our soul, and that give us the opportunity to really believe in ourselves and be a very content centered person. So cheers. Jiggers' place. It's a good place to hang out. And so I have a little bit of extra time here. A couple of thoughts. If you have an issue of life that you feel strongly about sharing with other people, send me an email. My email will be in the show notes after the episode posts on LinkedIn. And maybe you'll join me here on Jiggers Place and we'll talk about it together. I have a few ideas for this coming up. And, rather than making this always a monologue, I would love to share this, these Thursday evenings with one person or two or three or 10, and hear in real time your thoughts about my musings. So, like I said, if you have an idea for something, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Always interested in your comments. Post them on social media, and I will do my best to respond. And together, we will find a way to make our lives better. Not only our lives, but our families' lives, our children's lives, etc. So, before I leave you, a few things. Number one, next week, starting on Monday, all of these are Pacific time, 10 a.m. Trust and Estates Weekly. The topic is self-explanatory. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, business lessons from the military. And Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, is people making money. So those are my regular weekly shows, and I hope you'll join me. If you are not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, I would absolutely be very, very grateful if you would subscribe. And more importantly, spend some time watching my various shows. I have what I think are some fantastic guests. Marianne Dean was on my show earlier this week. She's an expert in dealing with conflicts and helping people mediate their way through them. What a wonderful, wonderful woman. I invite you to go and check out Marianne's episode. A few weeks before that, Jacqueline Yu was my guest, dealing with complex issues in trusts and estates. Again, just really an amazingly knowledgeable woman, and incredibly clear in how she explained it. So, as you might guess, I have a particular affinity for people who explain things, but also exhibit humility at the same time. So, as always, I thank you very much for joining me. And I wish you not only a wonderful evening, but a wonderful rest of the week. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Oh, one last thing. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do consider subscribing. That way you'll always know when a new show is posting. So, a toast to you, and signing off as I always do. My dear Marie, you are my belle. Courage at all times, even when life has thrown you a curveball that you really didn't want to have to take a swing and miss at. Courage at all times, my friends.